Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Kenny Krosky. I am going to be developing a plugin for Adobe XD today. And let me just pull up my notes here. So the plugin that we're going to create is a plugin that generates various artboards for different social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Dribble, and whatever else we want to include in this. So this plugin will tackle three things today. Um, Mostly the functionality of the plugin will be handled in this video. Any styling or so can take much longer time, so I may do that after the video. So today we will just show the plugin in the panel, create the markup for the panel, and then add the functionality whenever a user clicks on a button. We'll draw the artboard onto the document. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you'll want to do is check out the awesome documentation that the XD team has put together. In this case, we're going to go to the Quick Start plugin UI. So this will contain everything we need to get started. Our scaffold, which will include a main.js file, as well as our manifest file. And then your manifest file will look something similar to this. Keep in mind, once you submit your plugin, before you submit your plugin, actually, when you go into the submit plugin tab, they'll generate an ID for you once you go ahead and create your plugin there, and it'll look something similar to this. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the text editor. For the sake of time, I've already gone ahead and handled my manifest file. So let's go ahead and start coding. So we'll move that down. And so let's pull up my sidebar. You'll see that I have a manifest file here. I have my main.js file here, which will include all the functionality in the plugin. I've also created this little artboard PNG so we could render it into the panel. And these aren't the correct sizes, but I have an array of objects with different buttons we would probably include here. We'll have to go ahead and get the realistic values for the height and the width, but this will just be placeholder for the time being. Cool. So let's pull up XD as well. And you'll notice that our plugin does not show up here in our panel. And that is because we actually need to call our show function. So we'll go ahead and do that. Show will equal a function. And then we'll just log something out for testing. Plugin is showing. And then we'll do the same thing but for hide. Your plugin is hiding. So now if I refresh the plugins list, I'm on Mac, I'm gonna go ahead and hit Shift Command R. You'll see our plugin now shows up here. And let's pull up our console log as well. And when I go ahead and click on Artboard Generator, you see now it says plugin is showing, which we had said here. And then when we leave, plugin is hiding, which we have in our hide function. So now that that is working, we need to render out some HTML into our panel. And we'll go ahead and hoist a variable here. That way it could be called inside of, that way it's globally scoped, so we can call it inside of different functions. And we'll use let because we will be reassigning it once we add we'll concatenate some HTML onto it. So let's create this function called panel markup, name it whatever you want. And then we will create a variable and assign this to a string. And this will just contain, let's see here, it'll have an h1 select artboard. And so now we need to go ahead and create the element, document.create element. And then we need to add the inner HTML, which will be this, and it's just assigned to this variable, so we'll go ahead and call it here. And inside of our show, we need to go back in this function and just simply return the panel, because that's all we need from this function. And now what we can do here is we can go event.node.append child, and we'll call this function, which will return this. And then we'll hit save, and we'll reload our plugin. And now you can see we have select artboards. Our HTML is now rendering inside the panel, which is perfect. So now let's go ahead and create all of the artboards that we will allow the user to click on. And for that, we will go ahead and import this this array here, and we'll do artboard sizes equals require assets, and then artboard lib. Awesome. So now we can do this for let I equals 0, I is less than artboard sizes dot length, I plus plus. Cool. So before we do that, let's go ahead and assign a variable, and we'll leave it empty for now. And then we're gonna append each value onto this variable here, so we can simply just call it. We can call it down here, and we'll say div class button group. And then we could just do something like this. Cool. So a few things we'll need to do is to clean this up. I will get all the properties that I need off this. So you'll see we need the name, we need the image, the height, and the width. So we'll go ahead and do that. We need the name, the image, the height, and the width from each artboard, from each object inside of that array. So now we can go ahead and do something like this. Div class. First, like I said, we're going to reassign, or we're going to attach each object onto this variable. So we'll do something like this. Div class button L, and then we'll have an icon, and then we'll have that image in there, and then the name. Sorry, I'm trying to do this quick. This is basically my first video ever, so just bear with me. And so next we will have the button that will contain all the values. So whenever a user clicks on this, we will know the name of the artboard that they need, the height, and the width of the artboard to draw onto the document. So in order to do that, we'll create some data attributes onto this button. So we'll say data name, data height, and data width. And then we can just basically, get the name, and then the height, and then the width. Cool. So now we will say something like add artboard. And I'm pretty sure 100% not guaranteed that if we refresh our plugin, all four buttons should show up here with our icons and everything. So let's refresh, and bam, that works. Cool. So again, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go ahead and design this entire plugin out, but I will kind of clean it up a little bit. And by doing that, I'll go ahead and make these icons a bit smaller. So I'll say max width. Let's do 50 pixels, and then 100% width, and margin auto. And then the image inside will take up that entire 50 pixels or 100%. Let's do that, refresh, much better. And then let's also make the button out text align centered. And then let's give it some margin bottom of, like, let's say 30 pixels. Perfect. And then for this guy, I'll just go ahead and inline margin bottom 30 pixels. Cool. So now we have our 4 artboards that we could add onto the document. Perfect. So I guess the next thing to do, let's also like start knocking some things off this little laundry list. So we have it shown, we created the markup, and now we need to do the final thing, which is add functionality. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll create a function, and then we'll call it add artboard. And then we'll get all the buttons, document.query selector all, and let's see here. So first we want the panel to render, the markup to render in the panel, and then we want to query all the buttons. So a good way to do that would probably be something like this. We'll do it all asynchronously, where we'll have a wait. So we'll wait for this to render onto the panel, and then we will call this function, or the add artboards function, so we could query all the buttons. Cool. So let's see if buttons add, we gotta loop through all of them first. Buttons buttons.length again. Okay, cool. So buttons dot, or each button will add an event listener, which will be click, and that click will get values of each button. Cool. So now what we can do is we can have a function called get values, and this will contain the event, and we can get, let's see, let's create active button equals event target, or event current target, and then we can get each of the data attributes off of this, so we have all of these available to us. So we can get let name equals active button, get attribute data name, and we can do this for the height and the width as well. Cool. So now that we have this, what we can go ahead and do is we need to go ahead and start using some of XD's API, which I know we will need to use the scene graph, because we will need artboard from the scene graph, and we will also need to use the edit document since we will be editing the document based on the user behavior. So let's go ahead and do that. So up top, I'll go ahead and say const artboard, and that will require the scene graph. And then I will do the same. So we need edit document from application. I believe it's application. Let me double check. Yep, application. Cool. So now that we have all of this, we can go ahead and let's do edit document, and we can give this a label which has a string value, add artboard, and then the second object or argument is a callback function where we can have, let's add some arguments inside of this. We'll have the selection and document root. So now we can create the new artboard. Let new artboard equals new artboard, and then we'll attach some properties to this, and we'll say height is equal to height, or we need to parse this first. JSON parse height, and then the same thing for width. And then we'll give the new artboard a name, and then we'll just call it name. And now we can go ahead and say document root, add child, new artboard. So let's save this, go back to XD, refresh, and now our plugin does not show. Awesome. Let's see. Scene graph. I spelled scene graph wrong. Let's refresh. Our artboard shows again. Cool. Let's go ahead and click on one of these. And now you see the Facebook artboard shows up. And now the Instagram artboard shows up. And Dribble artboard shows up. But this is kind of ugly and it's kind of hard to grab because they don't have a fill. So we'll go ahead and add the fill to that, and to do that we also need color from the scene graph, and we can say new artboard dot fill equals new color, and we'll just give it a white background, a white fill. So we'll give it the hex code value, and we'll refresh again. Let's delete all of these first. And cool. Facebook, Instagram, Dribble, and Twitter. Now we have our social media artboard sizes. We will obviously need to go ahead and make sure they're the accurate sizes so it's helpful and realistic. But you get the gist of it. We could also redesign this later on or do whatever we want with it. I might open source this on GitHub so everyone could contribute. So yeah, that is how you make a plugin in XD. If you would like me to go into more detail on like the API or setting up your plugin, or just if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer. Yep, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know, what do people say? Go smash that like button, that thumb. I don't know what they say. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.